Okay, now we're going to look at numbers 9 and 10 here. So both of them here ask you to use a calculator to either find the secant, the cosecant, or cotangent of an angle. And so a problem that we get with this is on our calculator here, we have sine, cosine, and tangent, but we don't have the reciprocal functions. Now, we're not going to mistake here that cosecant is not the reciprocal, is not inverse sine. Okay, inverse sine here helps me find angles. So inverse sine is not the same thing as cosecant. Same goes for cosine and tangent. Now, let's look how we can do this and use the fact that we can use reciprocals here. Okay, so if I want to find secant of a particular angle, let's say that we were trying to find the secant of theta. Okay, what we could do there, since we have a secant button on our calculator, we can find cosine though. So we could find cosine of that angle. Let's say that the cosine gave me some decimal value. Okay, so point something here. And so all I have to do to find secant would just be to do the reciprocal of that number. And so on your calculator, let's see where it is on the graphing calculator, since that's probably what you guys are using. Okay. On my graphing calculator, you have x to the -1, which will take the reciprocal of anything that you give it. Okay, and similar, it's really the same thing on my scientific calculator there, x to the -1 power, that's a reciprocal button. So if you give it something and hit that button, it will take the reciprocal for you. So all I have to do here is take this value that I get from cosine and use my reciprocal button and find the reciprocal here. Now, let's do this one now. Secant of 24 degrees. So what I'm going to do first here is find the cosine of 24 degrees. Okay, so now my calculator here, we got cosine of 24 degrees. Okay, so it gives me about here 0.9135. Okay, now that's the cosine of 24 degrees. Now the secant of 24 degrees would just be the reciprocal of this. So all I have to do in my calculator here is take the reciprocal of this value. And so all I have to do is push my reciprocal button right there. And it will give me the reciprocal. So the secant of 24 degrees, which will be the reciprocal of the cosine of 24 degrees there. So it's about 1.0946. Okay, on our next problem, you're given cosecant. Now, the only difference with cosecant here is we're going to find the sine of the angle and then take the reciprocal here. So let's start off by finding the sine of pi over 6. And there was a big note on the test here that this was definitely in radians. So that meant you had to switch your calculator to radian mode. So on your graphing calculator, you go to mode, and about the third or fourth line down there, you can switch it from degrees to radians or radians to degrees. Now, it's definitely a radian measure here because there's no degree symbol to tell me this in degrees. So don't have my graphing calculator, but I'm going to switch my calculator here, my scientific calculator, into radian mode now. So now it's in radians. Now I can calculate sine of pi over 5. So I'm going to do sine and then my pi button, okay, over 5. So we're getting about, write this down here, 0.587, and that would round up to 8. Okay, now that's the sine of pi over 5. So the cosecant of pi over 5 would just be the reciprocal. So I'm going to hit the reciprocal button, and then that'll tell me the cosecant of pi over 5. So 1.7013. Now, I'm going to be real careful because probably this is the only time on my test where I'm going to need my calculator in radian mode. After I do this problem, you probably a good idea here to take your calculator and switch it back into degree mode. Okay, now it's in degrees there.